My uncle once told me, "You'd be nothing without me." He loaned me $20,000 to chase my acting dream in New York, and for a while he was my biggest supporter. But the moment I refused to be his personal errand boy, everything changed. He threatened to cut me off, demanded every penny back, and warned he'd erase me from his will. I thought I'd lost everything, but I was wrong. Because when you're backed into a corner, you either break or rise. And I chose to rise without him. My name is Ben. I'm 26, and for as long as I can remember, I've wanted to be an actor. Not a celebrity, not a millionaire, just someone who gets to tell stories for a living, who breathes life into characters and makes people feel something. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and dreams, like mine, usually die quietly in a corner. But I held on to it anyway. After college, I made the decision to move to New York City. I had no job lined up, no agent, and barely any savings, just a head full of dreams and a heart stubborn enough to try. My parents were supportive in spirit, but financially, they couldn't offer much. That's when my Uncle Richard stepped in. Uncle Richard was my mom's older brother. He owned a chain of car dealerships in New Jersey and was doing very well for himself. Growing up, he was kind of this larger-than-life figure, always in a crisp suit, always with a joke or a story to tell. He had no kids of his own and often called me the son he never had. He used to take me to Yankees games, send me gift cards on my birthday, and talk to me about building a future. So when I told him about my move to New York, he didn't hesitate. "I believe in you, kid," he said. "Here's 20 grand. Use it to land on your feet." He made it clear it was a loan, not a gift, but there was no deadline, no pressure. "Just pay me back when you make it big." He chuckled. I was beyond grateful. I used the money to cover a few months of rent, headshots, acting classes, and the basic essentials to get settled. Those early months were rough, long hours, waiting tables, constant rejection at auditions, and nights spent questioning everything. But through it all, Uncle Richard was in my corner. He'd call to check in. Sometimes send a little extra cash when I was struggling and remind me that real success takes time. We were close, really close. He was the one person in my family who got it, who understood that playing it safe wasn't always the best route. Then about a year after I moved, things started to shift. It began subtly. He'd call, less often seemed impatient when I updated him about my career. Still no real roles he'd ask. "You sure you're cut out for this?" At first I brushed it off as concern. But then came the offer. He wanted me to come work for him full time, not as a sales associate, but as his personal assistant. "You'd be great at it," he said. "Organized, dependable, and I'll pay you well. You can still do your acting stuff on the side." But I knew what that meant. The on-the-side part was a trap. His schedule was insane, and once I was in, I'd never really get out. I'd be caught in his world, not mine. So I told him no, politely but firmly. I thanked him for the opportunity and explained that I had to keep chasing this path while I still had the fire in me. That's when everything changed. Suddenly his tone shifted. The warmth disappeared. "I didn't give you that money so you could waste it playing pretend," he snapped. "If you're not going to step up and be part of the family business, then maybe it's time you pay me back all of it." I was stunned. He'd always said there was no rush, that he believed in me. But now, he was threatening to cut me off completely unless I repaid him immediately. $20,000, which I didn't have. He even said, "If you don't pay up, I'm cutting you out of my will. Don't expect another dime from me." It felt like I'd been punched in the chest. I wasn't just losing financial support. I was losing someone I thought was family. Someone who claimed to believe in me. It was as if the moment I stopped being useful to his plan, I stopped being valuable altogether. I tried to reason with him. I told him I was trying my best, that acting takes time, that I hadn't forgotten the loan. But he wasn't interested. He wanted control, and I wouldn't give it to him. So with a sick feeling in my stomach and a nearly empty bank account, I told him I'd figure it out on my own. We stopped speaking after that. I didn't tell my parents at first. They would have panicked. I just kept grinding, working double shifts at the diner, taking background gigs, and living off instant noodles. For a while, it felt like I'd made a horrible mistake. Like maybe he was right. Maybe I was being foolish. But something in me refused to quit. Because sometimes losing the person you thought you needed is exactly what sets you free. After Uncle Richard's ultimatum, everything got a lot harder. I moved into a smaller apartment in Queens, tiny creaky floors, and just enough space to fit a mattress and a microwave. I started picking up double shifts at the diner just to scrape by. My phone screen was cracked. My shoes had holes in them. But I was still showing up to auditions with a smile on my face, or at least trying to. The worst part wasn't even the financial stress. It was the emotional weight. I kept thinking, how did we get here? This man once told me I was like a son to him, and now he was treating me like a delinquent who had stolen from him. It wasn't like I had ghosted him or spent the money on parties and vacations. Every dime went into surviving and pursuing my dream, but to him my refusal to be his assistant was a betrayal. And he didn't just want the money back, he wanted to punish me for saying no. I tried sending him partial payments, small amounts from my tips money I should have used for groceries. But each time he'd text back something cold and transactional like, "This doesn't even make a dent." At one point, I offered to sign a formal repayment plan. He ignored it. It was never about the money. It was about control. Then one afternoon, I got a call from my mom. She sounded nervous, almost apologetic. "Ben, Uncle Richard told the family you ran off with his money." I sat there in silence, holding the phone to my ear as the world tilted. "He said you're ungrateful, that you used him and disappeared." My heart sank. I couldn't believe it. This man who once sat next to me at Thanksgiving, talking about our bright future, was now actively trying to poison my reputation within the family. Worse, some of them believed him. My Aunt Lisa called to check in, but really she just wanted to know if it was true that I was partying in Brooklyn while my uncle was financially devastated. Financially devastated. He owned 4 dealerships and a boat. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a falling out. It was war. He wanted me to suffer, not because of the money, but because I'd refused to be what he wanted me to be. And if I didn't comply, he was going to burn everything down behind me. My relationships, my name, my chances. It worked too for a while. The guilt was overwhelming. I felt like I had to defend myself constantly, like I was living under a spotlight, waiting to be judged. My self-esteem took a hit. At auditions, I second-guessed myself more. I flubbed lines I knew by heart. I started thinking, maybe I really am a disappointment. And then, as if the universe was testing me, I got hit with an eviction notice. Apparently, my roommate had stopped paying his half of the rent without telling me. We were 2 months behind. I had 2 weeks to get out or pay up. There was no safety net, no rich uncle to bail me out this time. I sat in that tiny apartment and cried, ugly broken sobs. I thought about quitting, going back to Ohio, getting a job at a call center. At least there I'd be close to family. At least there no one expected anything. I called my mom that night. I didn't want money. I just wanted to hear a voice that reminded me I wasn't completely alone. She listened. She didn't say much, but she said one thing. "I'll never forget, Ben. Your uncle gave you money, but you gave yourself a dream. Don't let him be the one who takes it away. That stuck with me. The next day, I got up early and went to an open casting call I'd been planning to skip. I didn't have clean clothes, I hadn't slept, and I was still puffy from crying. But I went. It was for a low-budget indie drama, looking for unknowns, something gritty and raw. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't perform the way I thought they wanted me to. I just showed up as me, as someone who had been broken and stitched himself back together with duct tape and faith. And it worked. A week later, I got a call back. 2 weeks after that, I booked the lead. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a prank. I reread the email 6 times before letting myself smile. They said they wanted real. They said I had something in my eyes they couldn't fake. And suddenly, all that pain, the betrayal, the broke nights, the shame, it had meaning. It had texture. It had made me interesting. I still didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Especially not Uncle Richard. I wanted to hold this close. I wanted to build something of my own, something no one could take credit for. So while he was busy bad-mouthing me at family barbecues, I was on set filming my first lead role. And for the first time in over a year, I didn't feel small. The first day on set was surreal. The shoot was for a gritty indie drama called Steel Hearts, a 6-episode miniseries picked up by Netflix through their Emerging Creators program. The production was small, but passionate. We filmed in upstate New York in abandoned warehouses and rain-slicked alleyways. My character was a struggling mechanic with a criminal past trying to raise his little brother while hiding from someone dangerous. For once, I didn't have to imagine what desperation felt like. I was desperate. I knew what it was like to be broke, to feel abandoned, to want something more than survival. That rawness made every scene real. I wasn't just acting. I was telling my truth through someone else's words. The director noticed. She pulled me aside after our second day and said, "You've got a storm behind your eyes. Don't lose it." I didn't. I threw myself into every moment. I rehearsed until 3 a.m., cried between takes, gave everything I had, because I knew this was my shot. I didn't care that it wasn't a blockbuster, or that we didn't have trailers, or catering tables piled with snacks. It meant something. The cast became like family. We'd gather around bonfires after shooting and talk about the weirdest parts of our lives: addiction, divorce, lost dreams. Everyone was broken in some way, but no one was pretending anymore. I felt seen. I felt like I belonged. Meanwhile, back in Queens, my real life was still a mess. Rent was overdue. My credit card was maxed out. I lived off instant oatmeal and dollar slices. But I didn't care. I was finally doing what I came here to do. I still hadn't told Uncle Richard. He continued sending passive-aggressive texts every few weeks. Any updates on that debt? Or still pretending you're a star? I stopped responding. I didn't block him, though. Part of me wanted him to see. Not because I wanted revenge, not yet, but because I wanted validation. I wanted him to realize he'd bet against me and lost. Months passed. Filming wrapped. We had our wrap party in a tiny bar in Brooklyn. I gave a short speech. I don't even remember what I said, just that I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I'd survived it. Every bit of suffering had led me there. Then a month later, Netflix released the trailer. It was moody, beautiful, raw. My face was in nearly every frame. I had one line, just one, but it hit like a punch. You don't fix things by running from them. The trailer blew up. Not viral, but buzzworthy. People started messaging me on Instagram, asking where they'd seen me before. I went from 200 followers to 8,000 in a week. Someone made a TikTok edit of my scenes. An acting coach I once interned for commented, "Told you this guy had fire." Suddenly, agents were reaching out. Managers, casting directors. And then came the email that made me stop breathing. An invite to the red carpet premiere. Netflix had decided to screen the first 2 episodes in a limited theatrical run, and they were flying out the lead cast for press. I was going to be in Los Angeles, with photographers, with press interviews, with a suit I had no idea how I'd afford. I remember sitting on my bed, staring at the screen and whispering, "Holy shh." This was real. This was mine. Getting to LA felt like stepping into another dimension. Netflix flew us out on a Thursday. They put me up in a downtown hotel with floor-to-ceiling windows and a mini fridge stocked with things I couldn't even pronounce. I'd never stayed somewhere that fancy. I kept opening drawers just to see how soft the robes were. The morning of the premiere, a stylist came to my room with racks of suits. I'd never had someone pick clothes for me before. She sized me up, narrowed her eyes, and said, "You're a charcoal gray kind of guy. Let's bring out the eyes." She wasn't wrong. When I stepped onto that red carpet, I wasn't Ben the broke waiter from Queens. I was Ben Taylor, lead actor in Steel Hearts. Cameras flashed. Reporters called my name. I smiled until my cheeks ached. And then, in the middle of it all, I saw him. Uncle Richard. He was standing near the entrance in a tailored suit holding a glass of champagne like he owned the place. For a moment, I froze. How the hell did he even get here? I hadn't invited him. But I knew exactly what he was doing. He was cashing in on the glow. He walked up, that familiar half-smile on his face, the one he used whenever he was trying to pretend he wasn't the villain in the room. "Ben," he said loudly, arms open like nothing had happened. "You clean up nice, kid." I blinked. "What are you doing here?" He chuckled, sipping his drink. "Heard you were making waves. Figured I'd come support family." Family. This man hadn't spoken to me in nearly a year without demanding money or insulting my choices. But now that I had a little heat, he was suddenly the supportive uncle. Again, I clenched my jaw. "I thought you cut me off." He laughed, brushing it off. "Come on, don't be like that. Water under the bridge, huh?" "Water under the bridge," I wanted to scream, but instead I smiled. Tight, sharp, rehearsed. The same smile I'd learned to use in auditions when a casting director interrupted me mid-line. "I'm glad you came," I said. His eyes lit up. He thought he'd won. "But let's be clear. I got here without you, so don't act like this was a team effort." He opened his mouth to respond, but I turned away and walked into the theater. Let him stew in that. The screening was electric. People clapped after scenes. My name showed up in the credits, and I swear I almost cried again. It felt like a resurrection, like I had finally become the person I'd always been, underneath the anxiety, the struggle, the fear. Afterward, at the rooftop reception, I got cornered by a producer who told me, "You've got something. I'd love to see you read for a new pilot we're developing." An agent handed me his card. Another actress pulled me aside, and she said she'd followed my work since the trailer dropped. And just 10 feet away, Uncle Richard stood alone, nursing his second drink, trying to mingle, but no one seemed to care who he was. No one fawned, no one asked questions. Because out here, he wasn't powerful. He wasn't needed. Later that night, as the party thinned out, he approached me again, more cautious this time. "You did good, Ben. Seriously. I'm proud of you." I nodded. "Thanks." There was a long pause. He looked like he was trying to find the right words, the kind that wouldn't bruise his ego, but might open a door. Maybe he expected me to offer him something: gratitude, forgiveness. an invitation back into my life. Instead, I said something simple. I used to think I needed you to make it, but I didn't, and tonight proved that. His mouth tightened. He nodded once. Fair enough, he muttered, then walked away. That was it. No grand apology, no admission of guilt, just silence. And that silence felt like victory. Because I didn't need revenge anymore. I didn't need to yell, or expose him, or prove him wrong. I was the proof. 2 weeks after the premiere, my world changed again. I was offered a lead role in another Netflix project, this time a full-length feature. It was a psychological thriller, and they wanted me. The contract came with a 6-figure paycheck, a percentage of back-end profits, and most importantly, creative input. For the first time in my life, I had power, not just the illusion of it, but real influence. I signed the deal with shaking hands. Around the same time, my agent called with a strange question. Do you have any unresolved financial stuff we should know about press might dig? I hesitated. You mean like debt? Yeah, or family drama. We just want to be ahead of any weird narratives. I laughed bitterly. Well, there's the $20,000 my uncle gave me before cutting me off when I didn't want to work for him. Does that count? There was a pause. Is it legally binding? No, I said. It was a gift until it wasn't. Then forget it, she replied. Let him come forward. Won't look good for him. I hung up, stunned. For the first time, someone was in my corner. No questions asked. No shaming, just strategy. I wasn't the underdog anymore. I was the asset. That's when it hit me. I didn't have to defend myself. I didn't have to explain, or apologize, or beg for forgiveness. Uncle Richard had held that money over my head for years. He weaponized it, controlled me with guilt, with threats, with silence. But now he was just a bitter man, watching the boy he tried to control build a life without him. I still hadn't blocked his number. He kept texting every now and then little jabs like, I hope success doesn't make you forget who helped you get there, or you're welcome for the loan that started it all. I ignored them. But one night, about a month after the second casting announcement dropped, he called. I stared at the screen for a full minute before answering. Ben, he said. His voice was calmer than I expected. I wanted to say, congratulations. You've done well. Thanks. And I'd like to talk. Maybe clear the air. Family's important. You know. There it was again, that manipulative nostalgia. That sudden selective memory. Why now? I asked, not harsh, just honest. He sighed. I was angry before. You hurt my pride. But I realize I overreacted. I let money get between us. And it's not what matters. I almost laughed. It mattered a lot when I was behind on rent and surviving on instant noodles. I said nothing. Then he added, look, I have this consulting opportunity out west. A few projects lined up. You're out here already. I thought maybe we could reconnect, maybe even collaborate. That word felt like poison in my mouth. I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. Uncle Richard, I appreciate the call. I really do. But the truth is, I don't need what you're offering. Silence. I continued. You helped me once. I'll never deny that. But what followed wasn't help. It was control. You dangled that debt like a leash. And I let you. I let you make me feel small for dreaming. His voice cracked. I was trying to protect you. You were throwing your life away. No. I interrupted. I was trying to live my life. You just didn't like that it didn't benefit you. Another pause. This one longer. I don't hate you, I said softly, but I don't trust you. and I don't need you. Not anymore. I hung up before he could respond. It was the first time I'd set a boundary without shaking, and it felt incredible. A few months later, I flew back to New York to visit friends and clear out my old apartment. It felt surreal walking past the diner I used to work at, the laundromat, where I once cried, in the back corner during a snowstorm, the subway station, where I'd rehearse lines aloud like a lunatic. I stopped by the coffee shop near my old place. The same barista was there. She blinked when she saw me. Wait, you're, oh my God. Steel Hearts. My boyfriend and I binged it in one night. I smiled. Guilty. She laughed and handed me my drink for free. On the house star. It was small, just coffee, but it meant something. It meant I was no longer invisible. A week later, I got an email. It was from an industry newsletter announcing a new executive partner joining a second-tier media firm, Richard Taylor. My uncle. The article included a short quote from him about fostering fresh creative talent. I stared at the screen, amused. He was still trying to position himself as a gatekeeper, still clinging to relevance, still pretending he could shape the future, even though the future had moved on without him. I smiled and closed the tab. I didn't need revenge. Success was enough. 6 months after the premiere, I found myself standing backstage at an Indie Film Awards ceremony in downtown LA. I had been nominated for Best Breakthrough Performance. I didn't think I'd win, not because I didn't believe in my work, but because I'd stopped chasing validation. Being here, being seen, was already a win. They called my name. I froze for a heartbeat. Then applause swelled, and I walked out under the lights. The statue felt heavier than I expected, cool and solid in my hands. I stepped up to the mic, heart racing. I used to think success looked like approval, like making someone who doubted me finally say, "You were right." But I've learned that real success is quieter. It's peace. It's waking up excited instead of afraid. I scanned the crowd. Faces I didn't know smiled back. But somewhere I hoped Uncle Richard was watching, not because I wanted to gloat, but because I wanted him to see what happens when you bet on yourself. After the ceremony, I slipped out early. Fame was never the goal, freedom was. On the sidewalk, I looked up at the skyline, all glass and stars, and smiled. For years, I thought the $20,000 defined me, that without his approval, without his money, I was nothing. But here I was, having built something real, not just a career, a life. And the best part? It was mine. Every inch of it.